Homage to fundamental teacher Buddha Shakyamuni. Homage to wisdom warrior Manjushri. Homage to all lineage benevolent masters. The Dharma, infinitely profound and subtle, is rarely encountered even in a million eons. Now we are able to hear, study, and follow it. May we fully realize Tathagata's true meaning in order to liberate all sentient beings from samsara, generate supreme bodhicitta. Below we will teach the words of my perfect teacher. In the words of my perfect teacher, we are now teaching the Vajrasattva practice. When teaching the preliminary practices, everyone should not think, I practice preliminaries to hear secret Dharma or to receive an empowerment. Don't practice with such a small purpose. Actually, practicing preliminaries is truly the foundation for becoming a genuine Buddhist practitioner. If the 5 preliminaries are completely practiced, I think, especially if completed with quality, this person will definitely become a very good practitioner. Therefore, in our practice process, everyone should not particularly emphasize quantity and don't think you must force yourself to complete it. Even when reporting numbers, also submit false data. This is also unnecessary. So I think any preliminary practice, whether refuge, arousing bodhicitta, Vajrasattva practice, or prostrations including Guru Yoga, Mandala practice for accumulating merit. For a true Buddhist practitioner, these are indispensable. So everyone must understand this point clearly. This is the first matter. The second matter I want to discuss is that we are now teaching the words of my perfect teacher. Actually, this book, The Words of My Perfect Teacher, now there are also some translations, other so-called The Words of My Perfect Teacher. I haven't looked at them in detail, but previously flipped through a page or two. After flipping through a page or two, I had some feelings. Of course, I appreciate having different translations. For example, the Diamond Sutra has so many translations. The Infinite Life Sutra has so many translations, including other various large and small sutras and treatises, all have some different translations. This should be acceptable. But now some people take previous translations, add modifications and alterations, making them unrecognizable, then thinking it's very good. This practice may not be very suitable. I haven't looked in detail. As I said earlier, just flipped through. That day someone here had what seemed to be the words of my perfect teacher, published by Religious Culture Publishing House. Previously, I had seen one published by Tibetan Region People's Publishing House. The previous one was slightly better, not changed very much. Basically, the typos in my original, The Words of My Perfect Teacher, were still left as they were. Wrong meanings because later some scriptural citations were revised again, but all the errors weren't corrected. And what wasn't wrong, many were. Not changed particularly much, just changing a name. Later, I also encountered these people. After meeting them, they themselves felt particularly embarrassed. But I also felt it's better not to discuss personal matters, because it wasn't changed much. So anyway, publishing is also acceptable. Although I didn't get a publication number here, I heard later some individuals from Taiwan, when talking with publishers, they deliberately spend money to buy this publication number, which may not be very good. Having a publication number doesn't necessarily mean the content is legitimate. This one I looked at the other day, said to be perfected based on 2 previous translations. Then something about the later incarnation of Pachurunpoche, but I didn't look in detail. Very qualified, very authoritative, something like this was said. Of course, if translated very well, I also rejoice greatly without any jealousy. I think a text can have different ways of understanding. It's just that my principle, generally speaking, translation should be either don't translate at all, or if translating, should have one's own characteristics. Don't modify what others have already translated, whether now or before. In my translation process, For example, when I translated Commentary on Valid Cognition and Treasury of Valid Reasoning, Finding Rest in Illusion, Finding Rest in Illusion Dharma, Finding Rest in Meditation Dharma, Liu Liqian had translations before Duzhong Rinpoche's The Nyingma School of Tibetan Buddhism. Previously, Liu Ruizi and others had translations. But in this process, I never changed the original words back and forth and then added my own name. I used my own understanding, whether right or wrong. Occasionally, sometimes with a sentence or scriptural citation, when really difficult to explain, casually opening to see how they explained, how they translated. When they translated, sometimes it was wrong. Sometimes they also didn't understand, leaving it there, often discovering this other than this. You may also discover there's no such thing. So personally, I feel, after so many years of translation, some people praise me too highly. This is very shameful. I absolutely won't acknowledge it. But some may change previous translations back and forth, then add their own names. I recall in the 7th chapter of Duzhong Rinpoche's The Nyingma School of Tibetan Buddhism, a quote from Ronzong Pandita was cited. Ronzong Pandita said, "The translators of the early translation school were remarkable. With their own wisdom, they translated the Vajra speech of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas exactly as it was. And when they translated Indian Buddhism, was complete and perfect without deficiency. But later, a very few translators, for purposes like their own fame and wealth, so each person translated one book, and in the translation process, basically changed the teachings translated by previous great masters back and forth, making them untrue and inauthentic. There was such a situation. This is not truly spreading the Dharma. At that time, many sages' words were quoted for criticism. We can't think this way though. Perhaps they have their purposes. But after looking at some of my scriptural citations and content, they were completely mistaken. Some translations are quite regrettable. The original meaning wasn't explained this way, but when they explain it themselves, because now some of them, for example, some Tibetan people don't understand Chinese. Chinese people don't understand Tibetan. These two are like the spiritual self of the Sankhya school that we discuss, unable to connect with each other. Finally, some Chinese people may deliberately make the words read more beautifully and smoothly, but actually the meaning of the original teaching has been completely mistaken. Very regrettable. This also exists. It's just that seeing some mistranslations, I feel kind of compassion. Feeling that people nowadays each produce many things because everyone may need to say, "Oh, I accomplished such and such," especially with a relatively famous book. Perhaps everyone feels it's good to produce their own version. Maybe it's like this, maybe not. I think I should be fair. Of course, whoever is correct, we should accept it worthily. So now, very few translations having a publication number doesn't necessarily mean the content is truly correct. But people nowadays are very clever, should be like many products too. Now, some factories and worldly people also use this method to do things. In this case, I'm thinking I'm not completely criticizing, but I discovered very few who think they are so very good. Also, Longzong Pandita said, "These later translators often boast how wonderfully I translated and based on such and such reliability, etc., often having many praising words. But actually compared to the early translators, there are particularly great differences. Because between the early translation period and later translation period in the relevant history, there are 6 major differences. Differences in patrons, differences in places, differences in translators, differences in great panditas, and so on. 6 kinds of differences were explained, including many Dharma friends in our academy who often offer service to the teachers. Service is very good. The vast ocean of Buddhist teachings, who can actually translate them? Especially in Tibetan Buddhism, there are particularly excellent collections. Translating these, I truly rejoice. But during the translation process, one should be cautious. This is particularly important. Otherwise, future generations may not find it very good, especially non-professionals. For example, those who are not genuine Buddhists, who may not have studied the 5 great treatises, basic teachings of Sutra and Tantra in Buddhism. Even if they studied, they only learn superficially. When such people take up the pen and start later, when a real professional looks at it, oh, this place is full of holes. In this case, it may not be as praiseworthy as one thinks. So in the future, whether writing or doing other things now in Tibetan areas, there are indeed many good things. There are also some bad things, according to current historical circumstances. When Venerable Atisha came to Tibetan areas, our Tibetan areas were completely like this. Someone came from India. The exchange between Tibetan areas and India was completely like this. When Rongzong Pandita appeared in the world, there were also many translators from Tibetan areas. In summer, they went to Mangjue Gongtang, which is the border area above Lhasa. In winter, they were in Nepal, looking for some similar, like the early translators, going to some genuine sacred places to translate. When they relied on teachers, gold was carried up in bags. But these later people didn't have this capacity either. But for the sake of a certain teacher, for competition, they insisted on walking there, carrying just a little bit under their armpits, an ounce or 2 of gold. Going there to find some rather ordinary teachers doing various things. This was quite common in history. So now, I don't claim that I translate very well. No one dares to say this. Indeed, the meaning of sutras and treatises is extremely profound. It's just that over many years, especially having received these teachings from teachers before, I haven't particularly emphasized fancy words or used other approaches. One should have one's own style, expressing as faithfully as possible what the sages said. This is such a principle and purpose. I have devoted some time and energy to this aspect before. I aspire to continue in this aspect in the future, but we, later ones, wise people, should compare. This is necessary. Wise people will completely understand after comparison, especially Buddhist professionals, seeing different translations of sutras and treatises, should also understand after study and reflection. I'll say a few words here in passing. Next, we formally teach the Vajrasattva practice. Today, we teach the actual recitation and meditation of Vajrasattva. Actually, as we discussed before, among all confessions practicing Vajrasattva is particularly excellent. Such confession is indeed particularly important for us. Many of us have committed countless karmas before. To purify these karmas, not confessing definitely won't work. If we confess, can they be purified? They definitely will be purified. I think I've used this before. The Sutra of the Sublime Golden Light has already said, if someone for 100,000 kalpas commits extremely grave sins, but momentarily confesses, all evils are completely eliminated. If some people during hundreds of thousands of kalpas, not 1 or 2 years or a dozen years, during hundreds of thousands of kalpas, committed particularly serious sins, later they realize they acted wrongly. Then, in a brief period, for example, a few months or years, in a brief time, a temporary period, if they confess openly, all the evils created in those hundreds of thousands of kalpas will be completely eradicated. This is particularly important. These are the words of the sage Buddha. Through confession, we can indeed purify. Therefore, other methods are not very appropriate. For example, other methods. In the Buddha Speaks of Unprecedented Causes and Conditions Sutra, there's a story about someone called Deve. You may have heard this too. She had committed rather serious sins before. She was a woman whose husband died. Later, she went alone searching many places, looking for ways to confess. Later, some Brahmins said confession has 2 methods. One method is for minor sins. You can offer milk to 100 Brahmins. This way, it can also be purified. The method for confessing serious sins is to offer all one's wealth to 500 Brahmins as charity, then pile up a lot of firewood and burn one's own body to ashes. Afterwards, one can ascend to heaven. Deve felt that indeed her karma was very heavy. According to minor sins, it definitely couldn't be purified. She must have serious sins. Later, she tried to find a lot of firewood to prepare to burn herself. At this time, there was a monk, seemingly Vagmaya. He discovered that this person was preparing to self-immolate. At this time, he told her that the Brahmin's method is not necessarily reasonable. You are already suffering. Burning in fire will make you suffer even more. If fire could truly burn away our sins, then in the hell of ultimate torment, burning for such a long time, not only can it not purify, but it also generates anger, creating even more sins. So he told her she must practice confession, practice the 10 virtues herself to attain liberation. Later, Deve also listened to Vagmaya's teachings. Indeed, the cause of happiness in this life and future lives is practicing virtue. Originally, Deve requested to serve him for her whole life, saying, "I've now found the true path of confession." But he said, "I don't need it. I won't stay for a long time." He traveled to various places to benefit beings. If you really want to repay my kindness, teach the 10 virtues to others in the future, so that others can also be pulled out from the ocean of suffering. Afterwards, she also attained a certain level of realization. From this, we can see that the method for removing karmic obscurations is solely confession. Confession includes generating bodhicitta, practicing Mahayana Dharma, and cultivating emptiness. The best that many of us here can practice is the recitation and the meditation of Guru Vajrasattva. Now we teach based on remembering the 4 opponent powers, entering the stage of actually reciting and meditating on Vajrasattva. First, one should settle down normally or visualize one's body as very ordinary. Don't visualize any deity. One's body is just ordinary. However, we usually are. Just settle like that. Then, above one's crown, in the space about an arrow's length away, visualize a 1,000-petaled white lotus. At approximately an arrow's length, about a foot high, visualize a 1,000-petaled lotus with particularly many petals. Above it is a full moon disk. The so-called full moon doesn't refer to size, but refers to all parts of the bright moon being complete and intact, like the 15th day's moon, without any curves, perfectly round. Above the 1,000-petaled lotus, visualize a round moon disk. In general, Vajrasattva practice, everyone can visualize this. Next, visualize a brilliant white Tibetan letter Hum on the moon disk. Although other traditions have the white Hum letter emit light, making offerings to the noble ones, giving to the 6 realms of samsara, then this light returns and merges into the Hum letter. There are such steps, but here, in the heart essence lineage, our tradition doesn't require such visualization. Just above oneself, on the 1,000-petaled lotus, there's a moon disk. Above the moon disk, there's a Hum letter. Initially, the Hum letter doesn't need to emit light. Then visualize that in an instant, the Hum letter transforms into the essence being, the assembly of all Buddhas of the 3 times, the incomparable treasury of great compassion, the qualified root guru. The essence, when we practice Vajrasattva, we must visualize as one's own Vajra Guru. Whichever guru you have faith in is acceptable. If you feel this guru is indivisible from Buddha, should be one who has been particularly kind to you in all aspects. Whoever you consider as your root guru, the essence is your root guru. The form is the sambhogakaya, fundamental teacher Vajrasattva, the main deity. For the form here, generally visualize Vajrasattva as the main deity. Of course, if you have particularly great faith in your guru, then the essence being Vajrasattva, you can directly visualize the Vajra Guru. In some practices, there are also such methods which are acceptable. His body color is pure white, like 100,000 suns shining on a snow mountain. One face, 2 arms, the right hand at the chest holding a 5-pronged Vajra, symbolizing the unity of clarity and emptiness. The right hand, Vajrasattva, should have the Vajra at the chest. The left hand rests at the waist, holding a Vajra bell, symbolizing the unity of appearance and emptiness. Generally for Vajrasattva, if we visualize the solitary form 1 is the Vajra, 1 is the bell and Vajra, both feet in Vajra posture. Adorned with the 13 sambhogakaya ornaments, Vajrasattva is in the form of a sambhogakaya Buddha, not a nirmanakaya or dharmakaya Buddha. Everyone should be clear about these basic attire. The 13 sambhogakaya ornaments are the 5 silk garments and 8 precious ornaments. Originally, in the words of my perfect teacher, there are illustrations of Vajrasattva. You should have them. The 5 silk garments refer to crown, shoulder drape, flowing ribbons, waist belt, and skirt. These are called the 5 silk garments. The 8 precious ornaments, head ornament, earrings, left and right earrings count as 1. Actually, the counting method in other practice liturgies also has different ways of counting. You should also understand this. Also necklace, arm bangles also count left and right as 1. Then chest ornaments and bracelets also count left and right as 1. Also rings are the same way. Ankle ornaments, left and right count as 1. In total, there are 13 types. Just mention the 13 sambhogakaya ornaments. All sambhogakaya ornament methods are the same. Generally, without pictorial representation, there are certain difficulties. So at that time, I asked many artists and also asked some teachers. Actually, many teachers often teach the words of my perfect teacher, but when it comes to explaining some details, including the attire of Padmasambhava and Vajrasattva, there are also some different explanations. At that time, I asked many artists. Artists sometimes don't know what they painted. Sometimes they might paint too few, sometimes too many. This cannot be too many or too few, otherwise there are faults. Basically, everything is written. I see what we wrote. Is there? Yes, this is Vajrasattva. If solitary form, this way is acceptable. But here in the Nyingtik liturgy, it speaks of Vajrasattva in union. Of course, for the Buddha in union, generally those with incomparable faith in the deity, especially those with tantric foundation. In this case, practicing Vajrasattva in union is acceptable. Generally, those who previously had no particular faith in the tantric wisdom of bliss-emptiness unity, who see the Buddha father and mother as worldly men and women with some impure desire or impure thoughts, it's better to practice only solitary Vajrasattva, which is acceptable. So how to practice here is just one's own visualization. It's not necessary when reciting Vajrasattva or the 100-syllable mantra to definitely visualize the deity in union. There's no such requirement. Generally, in Tibetan areas, there won't be wrong views or various discriminating thoughts about this. In this case, most Vajrasattva practices speak of Vajrasattva in union. Practice Vajrasattva in inseparable union with white Tara consort, the body appearing yet without inherent nature, apparent yet empty, like a water moon or reflection in the mirror, clearly distinct. When we visualize above our own crown, facing the same direction as ourselves. Did I say this? I haven't said this before. When visualizing, appearing yet without inherent nature, like a moon in water or reflection in a mirror. This is the basic requirements of generation stage. When visualizing deities, one must visualize as appearing yet without inherent nature. Visualize the noble being above one's crown, facing the same direction as oneself. Our Guru Yoga practice is different from this. If we are looking east, Vajrasattva is also above, facing the same direction as oneself. Looking that way, the above is the power of support, above one's crown, visualizing such Vajrasattva father and mother appearing yet without inherent nature, or solitary Vajrasattva visualization. This is called the power of support. Because our confession needs a power of support, this is called the power of support. This clear visualization is not visualizing like a flat tanka or wall painting as if really pasted on something. One cannot visualize like this. Although you can look at tankas and wall paintings, which is acceptable, but what you visualize when appearing in our minds cannot be like a tanka. There's nothing behind the tanka. It's not like this. Like a water moon, this is very important. Also cannot visualize as clay statues or golden statues, substantial material nature, inanimate essence. These also cannot be visualized, whether made of clay or made of copper. Truly visualizing above me something made of clay or copper, if I'm not careful, since I have no hair, won't a copper pierce into my head? Or visualizing above oneself some real thing, that kind of substantial thing. This is also unreasonable. When visualizing generation stage, there are all these requirements from the aspect of appearance, including the main deity, father and mother Buddha's eyes, black and white colors, etc. All should be visualized clearly without mixing. Everything is black and white, unmixed, very clear during the visualization process. From the emptiness aspect, without even a trace of substantial body's flesh and internal organs, none of these exist. Everything is like a rainbow appearing in space, or a pure crystal vase. A pure crystal vase. This is speaking from the aspect of appearance. A rainbow in space. It appears, yet has no inherent nature. From this perspective, there's fundamentally no substance or entity. From the appearance aspect, it's like a water moon or rainbow. A pure crystal vase seems to have substance, but actually from its pure aspect. So when we visualize, those of us present who are currently practicing Vajrasattva, when visualizing Vajrasattva, must visualize like this. It's not very difficult. After this clear visualization, sincerely remember Lord Vajrasattva, inseparable from the greatly kind root guru. You, with great loving kindness and compassion, please watch over me and all sentient beings. Think like this. Just now, after visualizing Vajrasattva above one's crown, pray in the manner of prayer, inner prayer. There are two kinds of prayer. One is vocal prayer, one is remembrance from within the mind. This is also a kind of confession. So visualize Vajrasattva as inseparable from the Guru. Must, you with wisdom and great compassion, please watch over me. From beginningless time until now, the 10 negative actions, 5 crimes with immediate retribution, 4 serious faults, 8 perverse acts committed by body, speech and mind, violating the outer vows of individual liberation, inner bodhisattvayana precepts, and the Vidyadhara secret Mantrayana's Vajrasamaya vows, also violating many other sins that will be mentioned below. So when we confess, we try our best. The 5 crimes with immediate retribution and 10 negative actions we committed before. The 10 negative actions definitely exist, everyone here. Some may have committed all 10 negative actions, some have committed part of the 10 negative actions. As for the 5 crimes with immediate retribution, we may not necessarily have the actual 5, but we may also have similar ones. For example, insulting our parents, being disrespectful to noble ones, and in many other aspects, such things definitely exist. The 4 serious faults and 8 perverse acts are in a guide to the words of my perfect teacher that I translated before. You can look at them yourselves when you have time. Actually, in our daily life, for example, taking the head position among the wise, this is also a kind of serious thing. Enjoying the wealth of mantra practitioners is also a serious thing. Enjoying the food of practitioners is also a serious thing. One cannot sit in the place where monks make prostrations if one sits there. These are called the 4 serious sins. Look at them when convenient. The 8 perverse acts, for example, slandering virtue and praising evil. Also obstructing others when they are accumulating merit. Disturbing practitioners' minds. In Tantra, also separating from Dharma friends, separating from mandalas, etc. In total, there are 8 kinds of sins that should be explained there. The 8 perverse acts have different explanations in other places too. But we indeed committed countless sins that should not have been committed. Violating individual liberation vows, lay vows, monastic vows, large and small, we may have violated many. Also, bodhisattva vows. The 2 great schools have so many precepts. The Vajrayana's uncommon and common Samaya vows are also countless, and so on. We violated them all, confessed them one by one. Also, betraying worldly oaths, we swore not to do such and such, but later indeed transgressed. Lying, having no shame or embarrassment, etc. All sins that can be directly recalled before Guru Vajrasattva, filled with shame, fear, and regret to the point of being shocked and terrified, confess openly. Moreover, all those I cannot remember from beginningless wandering in samsara. Life after life, I definitely committed countless sins. All these sins, without concealment or hiding, confess together and request forgiveness. May all these karmic obscurations, at this very moment in a very short time, be completely eliminated and purified. The above is the power of regretting having done wrong. Before practicing Vajrasattva as the deity, one is practicing Vajrasattva called the power of support. When we recite the 100-syllable mantra, this is what we can do. When reciting the 100-syllable mantra while thinking, for example, I am now 50 years old. Before I turned 50, before ordination, what sins did I commit? After ordination, what sins did I commit? What sins did I commit from beginningless time that I cannot remember now? Even in this lifetime, there are countless sins I cannot remember now. One by one, we can confess openly like this. Open confession can be said to directly and completely purify some sins. The Mahaparinirvana Sutra also says, if one conceals sins, sins will increase. If one confesses with shame, sins will be eliminated. If we confess openly, sins will be extinguished. So when we confess in our daily practice, it's particularly important. Especially when reciting the 100-syllable mantra, one must think before, Vajrasattva, I indeed committed countless sins from beginningless time. This is particularly important. It seems the Essential Ornament Tantra also says that, relying on Vajrasattva's 100-syllable mantra to confess, if one recites 21 times daily, sins will not increase. All are blessed not to increase. If we recite 100,000 times, even breaking samayas will be purified. The Essential Ornament Tantra explains this very clearly. Therefore, confession is particularly important. It should be like this. This is called the power of regretting having done wrong. Then silently visualize in the mind, I previously committed those sins due to ignorance. Those mentioned just now. Whether studying Buddhism or not, whether ordained or not, before and after taking refuge or not taking refuge, all sins were actually mostly committed due to ignorance, not understanding cause and effect, not understanding what to accept or reject. Some were committed due to heavy afflictions. Actually, there are mainly three ways. One is committed due to ignorance. One is committed due to heavy afflictions. One is deliberately committed due to karmic obscurations manifesting. Now, relying on the great Guru's compassion, I've become someone who understands benefit and harm. Previously, I didn't understand at all. Only through studying Buddhism and study reflection did I understand which things are sinful, which things are meritorious. Now I understand. From now on, even if encountering life-threatening danger, I will absolutely not commit such sins. This is called the power of resolution, which we discussed before. If one can truly confess before Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, it will definitely be purified. It seems the Sutra of the Great Assembly also says this. If one can confess and reveal all sins before the Buddha, the Blessed One, This person will be far from wrong views and able to reach the other shore of birth and death. If we, before the Buddha, whether Vajrasattva or other Buddhas, can truly confess all sins, all previously committed sins, and vow never to commit them again, then this person from then on will be far from all previous wrong views. From then on, will truly be able to reach the other shore of birth and death. How wonderful! So confession is still very necessary for everyone. It's impossible not to have committed sins. Indeed, we've committed many sins. Purifying these sins through confession is something we must do. So before Vajrasattva, in summary, one is to recognize one's mistakes. Everyone must understand. Actually, to put it simply, visualize Vajrasattva. Before Vajrasattva, recognize one's mistakes. After recognizing mistakes, I must correct them in the future. Worldly people are also like this. After committing mistakes before, they already recognize them. If they correct them after recognition, nothing happens. It can be forgiven. Some people clearly committed mistakes, but later still have another attitude, thinking they are right, still thinking their viewpoint is somehow established. In this case, first, you fundamentally haven't recognized the seriousness of the matter. Since you haven't recognized it, later there won't be a chance to change. Such behavior cannot possibly have a chance for forgiveness or purification. Next, according to the Nyingtik tradition, there is this recitation. Most of us are now practicing the confession from illuminating the path to liberation. Here it says like this. Above my ordinary crown, in the center of white lotus, moon seed whom becomes Vajrasattva teacher. The verses we recite before are the same. Above one's ordinary head, visualize white lotus and moon disk. In the middle of this, the Tibetan letter hum transforms into Vajrasattva, bright, perfect enjoyment body, in union with proud consort, holding bell and Vajra. Vajrasattva is the complete sambhogakaya as described before, in union with white Tara consort, holding Vajra, bell and Vajra. I pray to purify sins and take refuge in you. With fierce regret, I confess openly, even if I encounter life danger, I vow not to transgress. In your heart center on bright moon, Hum letter surrounded by mantras circling. Reciting mantras stirs the mind stream. So, at the union point of father and mother, bodhicitta nectar surges like clouds. Just mentioned, we pray to purify the karmic obscurations of self and all sentient beings. Take refuge in you, Vajrasattva. Take refuge in you, who are inseparable from the Guru. With fierce repentance, confess openly and recognize one's sins. From now on, even when encountering life danger, I won't make mistakes like before. After visualizing like this, on the moon disk at Guru Vajrasattva's heart center, there is a hum letter. We will explain this more later. Surrounded by the 100-syllable mantra, while reciting, we pray in this manner. This moves the mind stream of Vajrasattva father and mother. When we pray, we move the other's heart. Then, at the union point, bodhicitta nectar descends. Descending white as camphor juice, I and all sentient beings in the three realms, karma and afflictions, causes of suffering, demons, sins, harmful influences and defilements, please bless to purify without remainder. The descending nectar is like camphor juice. I and all beings in the three realms are bathed as if in rainwater. All one's afflictions, sufferings, demons, and karmic obscurations all become filthy air flowing downward. All karmic obscurations are completely purified. Pray to Vajrasattva like this. While reciting this, if we follow the Nyingtik practice, visualize after completing the visualization. Recite this once, then begin practicing the 100-syllable mantra. Reciting the 100-syllable while visualizing in illuminating the path to liberation. After reciting the visualization method above, directly recite the 100-syllable mantra. Fourth, below, reciting and meditating on the 100-syllable mantra. Then, at the inseparable heart center of Vajrasattva father and mother, visualize a moon disk. The size is like a flattened mustard seed. Above the moon disk, there's a white hum letter. The illustrations are all here. It seems there was a Vajrasattva DVD made before. Visualizing like that in there is acceptable, but visualizing through text might be better. Otherwise, through TV or DVDs, there are also some different feelings. But according to one's own situation, this visualization method has been introduced by many teachers before through books and DVDs to everyone. So I don't need to explain extensively here either. If convenient, look for yourselves. For the 100-syllable visualization method, if some don't understand, it's like this too. It should be fine, just like this. As if written with hair, while visualizing like this. Recite the 100-syllable mantra Om Benza Sato Samaya, Manupalaya Benza Sato Tenopa, Tihajrito Me Bhava, Sto Kayo Me Bhava, Supo Kayo Me Bhava, Anurakto Me Bhava, Sarva Shitti Me Prayatsa, Sarva Karma Sutsa Me, Chittam Shriyam Kuruhum Ha 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 Ho, Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata, Benzar Ma Me Muncha Benza Bhava, Mahasamaya Sato wa. This is the traditional way. Sato wa, what are you laughing at? The 100-syllable mantra, like upright animal horns, without conflict, circling around the hum letter. Then from one's own mouth, recite the 100-syllable mantra in the manner of prayer. For example, when praying to Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions, praying to Vajrasattva. So when we recite the 100-syllable mantra, some with palms together with particularly fierce mind of confession, recite. This is very good. Here it's prayer-style mantra recitation. There are several types of mantra recitation. Some are abiding-style mantra recitation, also prayer-style, subjugating style. When we recite mantras of some wrathful deities, we also recite with particularly fierce voices. This is mainly prayer style. Praying before Vajrasattva. Please definitely bless all sins in my mind stream to be completely purified. In this way, when we usually recite the 100-syllable mantra, I've observed many Dharma friends' expressions are indeed very good. Everyone closes their eyes, whether with joyful mind or ashamed mind, seeing Vajrasattva. Encountering Mahayana Buddhist teachings, there's a kind of joyful mind. For these things committed in past lives, there's a kind of guilty mind, feeling that I'm really a sinner, having committed so many. Now, before my death, if I don't properly confess and purify, if I go to the next life carrying such sins, indeed, although some teachers say carrying karma to rebirth, but if the karma carried is too much, rebirth might also be quite difficult, so confession is still very necessary for us. I often think, when we can still confess, quickly confess, this is also very important. Otherwise, life is truly impermanent. None of us has assurance we won't die tomorrow. 100% I won't die tomorrow. No one dares to say this. When sleeping at night, just like this, dead. We ourselves are unaware. By tomorrow morning, we've become corpses. Very hard to say. Extremely hard to say. When dead, indeed, karma follows oneself. Before this, at least I recited 100,000 Vajrasattva 100-syllable mantras. That would definitely purify a portion. If we truly possess the 4 opponent powers, the Vajra words of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas will definitely purify. So when we recite the 100-syllable mantra, everyone should also meditate on impermanence. Indeed, today I'm living such a happy life among humans, but tomorrow I might be burning in hell. It's hard to say. Indeed, if the karma I created is particularly severe after I close my eyes, immediately the hell of ultimate torment, that's very fast. If in 1 minute I get sick and die after death, hell of ultimate torment, no other intermediate path, directly falling into hell to burn. So we should still those who believe in cause and effect. Future lives cannot possibly not exist. In this case, confession is very important. Just mentioned prayer-style recitation of the 100-syllable mantra. Visualize from all the mantra syllables like ice being melted by fire, forming water drops, continuously descending the nectar of wisdom and compassion. If fire melts ice blocks, water continuously begins to drip down. so the nectar of wisdom compassion continuously flows down from the union point of Vajrasattva father and mother through the body, flowing out from the secret place of father and mother in union, flowing into the crowns of all sentient beings, self and others, like when it's raining, rainwater descending on the body, all sentient beings, self and others below, visualizing Vajrasattva above. From Vajrasattva's body, such nectar descends and merges into oneself, making all diseases in the body become pus and blood. All demonic obstacles become spiders, frogs, fish, snakes, tadpoles, lice, and other small beings' forms. All karmic obscurations become smoke, juice, charcoal, juice, ash, smoke, clouds, vapors, and other forms. All of this, like torrential floods washing away dust and earth, all are washed away unobstructedly by the nectar flow. All karmic obscurations and demonic obstacles in one's mind stream. This is very important. We practice Vajrasattva, such practice, in daily life. For example, many demonic interferences, possessions, and many various kinds of one's own karmic obscurations, except for very few special fixed karmas from past lives. Generally speaking, there's nothing that cannot be eliminated or unobstructedly from one's soul's, anus, or pore areas, darkly or expelled. When visualizing, we should be able to visualize these all expelled. At this time, further visualize the great earth below oneself, cracking open all male and female creditors and enemies surrounding the Lord of Death, Yama. When all karmic obscurations come down, the great earth below opens beneath. The great earth, all creditors and enemies from beginningless time, they all surround the Lord of Death, waiting. They all open their mouths, stretch out their hands, extend their claws to receive. Receive what? All the pus and blood flowing down from above. While visualizing like this, recite the 100-syllable mantra. When we recite the 100-syllable mantra, we should recite while visualizing like this. If one can clearly visualize all objects of focus at once, visualize like this. Of course, this is very difficult for me to explain, not necessarily saying it's you all, because all the deity father and mother's attire, inside and outside forms, as well as oneself and others, including creditors and enemies, all of these, if one can visualize them all at once, visualize like this. But without certain generation stage abilities, indeed, when you visualize one, you forget the other. Impossible. So when originally practicing Padmasambhava's Guru Yoga, there was a disciple who went to a teacher, particularly sad and disappointed, really having no way. When I visualize Padmasambhava's upper body, I forget the lower body. When visualizing the lower body, I forget the left side. Every day continuously chasing Padmasambhava's body, it's really particularly painful. I don't want to practice anymore. Later, the teacher told him, don't think like this. You just need to visualize Padmasambhava existing in front. Actually, originally in my Footprints on the Journey, I explained the practice method of Chagme Rinpoche. This practice method is very easy for many people. Above one's crown, visualize Vajrasattva. Vajrasattva emits light, emanating countless Vajrasattvas. Countless Vajrasattvas above every sentient being, whether dead or alive. All sentient beings above each one, there's a Vajrasattva. Then when I recite the 100-syllable mantra, these Vajrasattvas send down nectar, eliminating each being's karmic obscurations, finally becoming light and merging into beings, all beings, self and others, abiding emptiness. Chagme Rinpoche has a very simple practice method. I used this simple method in Footprints on the Journey in 2002. I myself felt practicing it for a period of time, it's still particularly good. This is very easy to practice. I just visualize like this without many complications. But if this can be practiced, of course the blessings of lineage teachers, many auspicious circumstances, everyone can practice. Of course, visualizing all at once is best. If visualizing all at once cannot be achieved, then at times concentrate wholeheartedly on visualizing Vajrasattva's body, face, arms, etc. Visualize all parts of Vajrasattva, always thinking of Vajrasattva's countenance, Vajrasattva's hands, Vajrasattva's Vajra bell, then thinking of his ornaments, ribbons. Oh, dressed so beautifully. Sometimes thinking, should I also make such a skirt? When visualizing, might one think like this? His necklace is beautiful. I should also go to a jewelry company sometime to buy a necklace like Vajrasattva's. How beautiful that would be. Then, oh no, I shouldn't. I should properly confess. My mind returns again. At times, concentrate completely on visualizing the main deity's attire while reciting. At times, visualize nectar flow washing away one's demonic obstacles and karmic obscurations while concentrating on recitation. We should all be able to do this. At times, recite with the mindset of confessing past and vowing for the future. Sometimes thinking about this, sometimes that, sometimes thinking about what one committed before. What sins did I commit before? This is too shameful. Some people often think like this. Wow, don't mention past sins. When mentioned, I want to cry. Particularly frightening, particularly painful. At this time, one must bring them to mind, because we need to confess openly. For open confession, bring all of these to mind. Finally, visualize that the Lord of Death Yama and others dwelling underground, all creditors and enemies are completely satisfied, because all the nectar that descended just now was completely given to them. Some Vajrasattva practices explain they become their respective resources. For example, the dark water and pus blood descending from my body when reaching the creditors and enemies. What I originally owed, some owed money, some owed feelings, some owed various kinds of things when it reaches their hands. Through this, it's already repaid. They are already completely satisfied. All our previous debts are completely cleared. Think like this. All creditors and enemies are completely satisfied. By this, past enmities are resolved. Karmic debts are paid off. Sins are purified. Everything, whatever you owed before is all. For example, if I killed him before, this life debt is repaid. Through this, what I owed him before is all already repaid. Some people say, I didn't harm you in this life, I owe you. Through Vajrasattva's confession method, you've repaid it completely. From now on, we have no issues of owing anything. You don't owe me, I don't owe you. Karmic obscurations are purified. Yama and others also closed their mouths, hands, and claws. The cracked earth returns to its original state. Let's stop here for today. So, everyone should practice the Vajrasattva meditation.
Om